Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the biggest differences that I have found between people in the UK and in Australia. So I lived in Australia for 2 years and I'm originally from the UK. So after living in both places, I definitely noticed a fair amount of differences between people in both countries, people's kind of attitudes and just the general culture of the people in both countries. And there were some interesting differences that I noticed for sure. Before we get into it, make sure you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get into the video. Now, Aussies and Brits, I feel like, are known for being fairly similar, but there's definitely some interesting differences. Some things which I definitely liked about Aussies, some things which I found a bit weird. So the first point, quite simply, is Aussies, I would say, are more positive, more optimistic, and Brits are more negative and pessimistic for sure. I think just when it comes to life, I feel like British people are known for being pretty negative. I think that's part of our culture. We're very sarcastic, like we're funny, but definitely negative, and I feel like the negativity in the UK rubs off on everyone compared to in Australia, where I feel like it's the opposite. Don't get me wrong, when I first moved to Australia, I kind of expected Aussies to be a lot crazier than they were from what I'd seen online and stuff, but Aussies are actually very, very chilled out. But one thing that I did definitely notice is the culture is a lot more positive. People just seem to enjoy their lives a lot more in Australia, and obviously I can see why, because Australia in most ways is a lot nicer than the UK. But yeah, it was clear to me, to be honest, and that's that Aussies just seem to enjoy life a lot more. They're more optimistic about things, do you know what I mean? They're just positive, they're excited about life, and even if they're working a job they don't really like, then it's fine because they've been surfing before work or they're doing this after work, and they're just living a good life. Compared to in the UK, where the amount of negative people I used to meet at work that just go to work, hate their job, and then I'm like, what are you up to on the weekend? And they're just like, nothing, just watching TV. Compared to in Australia, where I feel like everyone just loves life, which is pretty cool, to be honest. Now, I do feel like there's a massive hate culture in the UK as well. Anyone that's doing well, has got ambitions, just get hated on, because the UK is full of mostly jealous people who aren't happy with their lives. I found this less the case in Australia, for sure. I think Aussies, in terms of living in a positive culture, Australia definitely wins on this one. The next point is that Australians are defensive and English people aren't so defensive. Now, I can't speak for everything, but particularly towards their country, I feel like as much as English people are patriotic, they do love the country, a lot of them, and they want the best for the country. If someone comes to the UK and starts complaining about the country, no one's really gonna care. No one's gonna kick off. No one's really got that strong of an opinion that they're gonna make a fuss about it. Compared to in Australia, if you have an opinion on a place that an Aussie disagrees with, they're gonna really disagree with you and get very defensive. I found this on social media for sure, especially on like TikTok and stuff. If I have an opinion about a place, Aussies hate it if you say anything negative. And as much as I talk positive about Australia, there is negatives, but Aussies get extremely defensive about their city, their town. Everyone has their favourite cities in Australia, and if you disagree with them, then they're very, very passionate about their favourite city, which I respect in a way, but it's very different to the UK when no one's really passionate about it. If someone comes to the UK and has an opinion and complains, no one really cares. In Australia, everyone's like, go home, you whining pom. Do you know what I mean? Everyone is a lot more defensive in Australia when it comes to opinions about the country, which I guess is a good thing. It's good to be defensive about your country, but it definitely surprised me because English people are definitely not like that. Like, we don't really care. The next one is, I feel like people in Australia prioritize life, whereas people in the UK prioritize work. I feel like people in the UK let work dictate their whole life. Do you know what I mean? They're obsessed with their jobs and they just let it dictate everything and don't really get up to much on the weekends. They're living to work, basically, whereas I feel like people in Australia are working to live. Like I said, I met people in Australia who maybe didn't enjoy their job that much, but their outside life, outside of work, was so good that it was almost worth putting up with a shit job. They'd go surfing, they'd have barbecues every weekend, they'd be down the beach before work, after work. And I feel like Aussies just, yeah, they just prioritise their life. And whilst I don't think the work-life balance is necessarily better in Australia, I think you've still got to work just as much. The difference is your time off is so much better, and you can see that with Australian people is they definitely prioritise their time off over work, I feel like, compared to in the UK where work is people's lives, and then when they're not at work, they're relaxing, they're at the pub, that's about it. And then I feel like they just let work dictate their life, whereas in Australia, people who even don't enjoy their jobs that much are still living a great life because their outside life outside of work is so much better than what it is in the UK. Also, the wage is a lot better, so in Australia you can actually get away with sometimes just working 4 days a week maybe and still saving money, compared to in the UK where that's going to be quite difficult. The next point is, in general, Aussies are healthier for sure. I think there's a lot more of a healthy culture in Australia compared to the UK. I think there's a massive fitness culture in Australia. People love to be down the beach first thing in the morning, 6 a.m, going for a run, and everyone's in shape. Going down the beach in Australia, like, all the guys are pretty big, muscles, all the girls are healthy, running. I feel like Australians, you don't see that many overweight people in Australia from my experience, not compared to the UK at least. And I think like it's a healthy population. Everyone's very active. You go on hikes, there's people everywhere. I don't know, I feel like the weather especially allows for this, but people in Australia I found are a lot more healthy. They eat healthier, probably again because the weather's nice, it makes you want to eat healthy, compared to in the UK where people are just lazy, and there's a lot more fat people from my experience. People just go to the pub, order takeaways, and just live a very unhealthy life. But yeah, I feel like people in Australia are healthier. I also thought that there would be more of a drinking culture in Australia. I thought Aussies were, from what I'd seen online, I thought Australians were gonna be pretty big drinkers. And while some of them are, I feel like there's a lot more of a drinking culture in the UK. The pub is such a big part of everyone's life, and for a lot of people, work and the pub is their whole life. Compared to in Australia, where obviously people like a drink still, I feel like people have other hobbies. People like to go to the beach, they like to go on hikes. You know what I mean? From my experience, I found I lived a healthier life in Australia, and most Aussies seem to, compared to English people as well. And the last point, some Aussies might disagree with me on this one, but it's the accents. And from my experience, there isn't many accents in Australia at all. I think people say there's like a bogan accent, whatever that is. And there's a few different accents amongst Australians, but not a lot really, and nothing that I could really tell the difference between, considering it's so much bigger than the UK. I'm surprised there isn't more accents compared to in the UK, which is a way smaller country, but yet you drive 2 hours in the UK and that accent changes completely. You drive an hour in the UK and it's a completely different accent. You go from Liverpool to Manchester, London to Birmingham, Yorkshire to Newcastle, do you know what I mean? There's so many accents, Scottish, Welsh, Bristol, like the accents are crazy and they're so different in each place. Compared to in Australia where I really couldn't tell the difference between accents at all. Considering it's a massive country, you'd expect the accents to be pretty different, but Perth and Sydney, which is a 5-hour flight apart, couldn't even tell the difference in accent. Yet in the UK, you drive an hour and it's like you've landed in a different country. So they are some things between English people and Australians that I noticed after moving and living in Australia. And definitely some interesting points that I picked up on. In general, Aussies are healthier and happier, and I think live a better life than English people. I think English people are very negative. I will say that I think English people do have better humour, and well, for me at least, and even as negative as they are, my best connections are still with English people for sure. As much as I do like Aussies, generally I found I get on better with fellow Brits. But yeah, that's just from my experience. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you very soon with another video.